Hi North Haven, this video is going to show you some ideas for how to use Jamboard in a Google Meet and what it would look like. So just so that you know, as a note, I've heard from some teachers that have been using Jams that it's not very effective to try and start it within the Google Meet, that is causing some problems with me. So what I would recommend, instead of using the nice new feature that we just learned about right here, which lets you open a Jam right in the Meet, I'd recommend creating your Jam beforehand, coming to your Google Drive, and see, I can come right down here. I can right click and then click Get Link. Now this one I've already set up to be able to be shared with my students and have them edit it. But what you'll need to do is click here. It's going to say restricted. That's the default. You'll have to change that to North Haven Public Schools so that your students can access it. And then if you want them to be able to show their work or write notes or highlight or whatever you might want them to do to interact with it, you'll have to change it to editor. If it is just note slides and you don't want them to change things, you can change it to viewer. So when you're done, you're going to click copy link and then come back to the Meet. Click the chat with everyone icon up here at the top right. And then down here, you can either click Control V on your keyboard to paste, or you can right click and click paste and then send it to your students. Notice over here, the student will get a note that they got that. If they don't click that little bubble that appears before it disappears, they can come click chat and then click the link to follow it. Now, this is kind of a nice way to present to the students without presenting your screen. So what's happening here is they are just opening this as a separate tab. They've still got their Meet tab open, so they can still hear you. And if they come back to the Meet tab, they'll be able to see you. But when they're in their Jamboard, that's going to be the only thing on their screen. So if you think about the Chromebook and how small the screen is, this way, it doesn't matter how big the Jam is on your screen, the students are still going to have the Jam take up their whole screen. As a note, one thing you can do is, if you want to, you can take the Meet out of the Jam and pull it to the side, and now you'll be able to see the Jam on one side and see your students on the other side. And like we just said, the students, it's not going to affect on their Chromebook how big or small your Jam is on your screen, because they're just looking at the Jam in their own tab. So you can make it smaller, and if you have a bigger class, you can see your students more easily. So the next thing I want to show you is how this looks side by side. So here on the left is my Jam, and here on the right is my students' Jam. And what can happen is, as the students add things to the slide, you'll be able to see it on your side as well. So for instance, one thing they could do is add sticky notes. When they're done, they can change the color of the sticky note. So if you want them to code the type of comments they're making, you can have them do that by color. And then they can click save to put it into the Jam. Notice that that showed up on mine right away. Now you will probably have a little bit more of a delay. I'm working on one computer, so it's going to work pretty efficiently. And also I'm working with only 2 people in my Meet, and if you have 20 or 30 students, that might also slow it down a little bit. You can also use the pointer to draw attention to something without making a permanent mark on the Jam, and the students will also see it on their side. The same thing would happen for text boxes, for shapes, to erase things. One thing to note is the student over here can move these pictures and kind of mess with the format of your slide. There is a way to get around that if you're worried about that with your students, which is to insert images of Google Slides. And there is a video in this playlist about that, so make sure to look at the playlist if you're interested in that. One last thing to consider is that if you create a new frame, you have to let the students know that you've gone to the new frame, so that they can also go to it and see what you're talking about. So unlike presenting, if you do present your screen, obviously as you move the frame, the student's view will change as well, because they're looking at your actual screen. But if you're sharing a document like this, you'll have to remind the students to go forward. But that's it. It is a pretty simple, straightforward product. It's a little bit limited in some ways, so that's why I have some more videos showing you how to get around some of the limits. If you have any questions or you want to talk about it, feel free to reach out and I can meet with you to talk about it.